My name is Rohit, and I have 14 years of experience in cloud security, DevSecOps, and AI security, and also in MLOps. Okay. I have worked with multiple companies like Cisco, Dell. I've worked with Microsoft and also, with Informatica. And there are a few more companies, that I have worked with. So in this journey, I've been through, a lot of technology. I've architected a lot of technology, and also looked into various aspects of AI security, MLOps and DevOps and DevSecOps. Okay, so this course is targeted for people who want to learn MLOps, right? Who understand a little bit of DevOps and who also knows a little bit of data science, right? So see, this course we will start from basics. Okay, we'll start with you know the basic concepts of Python, and then we'll also cover basic concepts of machine learning. Right, there are different concepts in machine learning: supervised, unsupervised. How do you train the data? How do you refine the data? Right, so all these labeling, right, data collection, and how do you explore the data? So those things will be covered as a basics in this course. This training will be completely on Azure. Okay, so we will be using Azure services to test, practice, and do our hands-on as well, right? So in this training, we'll try to understand the basic concepts of MLOps, right? In module one, right, we will understand what MLOps is, right? And we'll start with why do we need MLOps, right? Why do we need MLOps? We need MLOps to reduce human efforts to analyze for example, someone was saying about logs, right? So we you reduce human efforts to analyze logs, get correct data to ourselves, right? To reduce human effort. So this is one of the example, right? So in the module two, right, we will try to create some pipelines. We'll try this in Azure VM and see how we can deploy a pipeline and then, you know, slowly enhance it with an automation, right? We can deploy a CI/CD pipeline and plug in our MLOps actions or plug in our MLOps automation to create a end-to-end pipelines. Okay. So why do we need Python? We need Python to, help us clean the data, right? There are different libraries and binaries that we will be using to clean up the data. So the MLOps is basically about, playing around with data and making sure that that data is being utilized properly for future. So Python, as I said, right, you will be using a lot of binaries and libraries from Python to develop and sanitize our data, right? And then what we will do is we'll try to deploy our ML, we'll try to build a ML API using Flask. So Flask is one of the Python, it helps you to bring up the UI and you can develop this using Flask. Okay, so we'll look into how we can develop APIs, right? So if you're writing a Python application, you can use Flask to create an API and we'll test this locally and see how this thing works. And then, if once you've understood the basic concepts, how you clean the data, how get the data and the basic understanding of MLOps, then what we'll do is we'll move into how you can convert that application or that API or that exact ML that you will be working with into a container, right? How do you create that? How do you build that? And how do you manage it using GitHub Action? So we'll use GitHub Action to create, build, and manage your ML containers. So why ML containers? What we mean is the container is like Docker containers. Okay. I'll also teach you about basics about Docker, which will help you understand, what Docker is and how you can create a basic image or how you can create an advanced level of images, right? So those concepts will be covered in this module 6. And in module 7, I will teach you how to understand Kubernetes architecture, right? So understanding Kubernetes architecture, I mean, you must be thinking, why do I need it, right? Now, nowadays, everything is microservice, right? So you need to have at least a fundamental understanding of Kubernetes so that you know where to deploy your application and how to deploy your application. And in case of any kind of failure or any kind of issues with your container that you have deployed, right, you should be able to do a basic troubleshooting and maybe at least pull out the logs. Okay. Have you heard about Kubeflows? So we'll also be, this is one of the, tool that, we will be using to do our projects, right? So Kubeflow is where someone was talking about a scenario where, they want to, go through the logs and understand what is happening inside the logs and build out some models that can, automate things for them, right? So Kubeflow is where, you can integrate it in your pipeline or in your data, and you can see how Kubeflow works and helps you after reading the logs, right? It will help you understand what you can do with Kubeflow. Like for example, you can do a prediction. Let's say prediction, like let's say you have logs, right? Those logs are related to your CPU and memory usage, right? And you can tune in your Kubeflow in such a way that it can do some kind of prediction, right? Let's say if there is a sale going on, or if there is, if there is any, let's say for example, sale going on, meaning, let's say for take an example of Amazon. Okay, right? Let's say if there is a sudden spike in traffic, right? ML MLOps with Kubeflow can predict that, hey, you will need these many CPUs and you will need these many memory, so that you can keep your system ready, or you can be alerted on what is going to happen. So when you have understood till model 10, what we do is we explain you how to integrate everything inside the CI/CD pipeline. Like, so how do you automate the workflows, right? So how do you make your workflow read logs? How do you make your workflow understand, or predict the usage of your environment? How do you clean your data? Like, let's say you are a database administrator or you're a data scientist, right? How can you automate a process to, clean the data, sanitize the data, and, keep the data somewhere for further use, right? We'll also be looking into Azure repos and Azure pipelines. So that is similar to, what is an automation, right? So these are specific terms used in Azure. So Azure repo is nothing but where you can, develop your machine learning containers and keep it there. So this repo is a place where you can keep the code, right? Your ML codes or your, sanitization code, and using the code from here to the pipeline, you can automate things. So it's like a GitHub, right? So you keep your code in GitHub, and using GitHub action, you trigger the pipeline. So it's the same thing that we will be doing. It's like more of DevOps work. So I'll explain how this is done. So I have already talked about the Kubeflow and ML flow. So we'll be also covering this projects, right, that we will be doing. So installing and configuring AKS, which is Azure Kubernetes Service. So this is very straightforward. No rocket science here. I'll teach you how to create a Kubernetes cluster inside Azure, and then we'll deploy a model, right? And using that model, we will monitor the performance, right? And the resource usage, the example that I gave you earlier, right? So like predicting your CPU memory usage, or, understanding, your application's latency, or analyzing your common errors and logs, and, come up with a solution that can, enhance the user experience, or enhance, like, let's say, SRE's experience, or enhance your security team experience, right? So depending on what data you're getting and how you train it through, you will get get this done. And Grafana, I think most of us already know what Grafana is, right? So we will also be creating a dashboard. If you don't know Grafana, that's absolutely fine. I will show you how to deploy it and how to configure it with our MLOps model. Okay, so we'll add that as maybe module 12 here only, we'll add it. right? And AKS and all is very, we have covered it earlier, right? And we'll talk about sorting and managing. This is part of our AKS and a registry, right? So we'll get into the data storage, right? Once you have deployed your ML apps on AKS Kubernetes service, we will see how you can work with the blob storage, which is Azure storage, right? And how you can define lifecycle and access controls on your data set, right? And how you can make sure that your data is reusable, sorry, how your model is reusable, and those kind of concepts will be covered in this is overall what we're going to cover in our MLOps training, right? Thank you for your suggestion. We will add that the drift detection, right? Model drift and the concepts of
Data.
drift and how it can benefit in your day-to-day work. And we'll try to also develop a scenario and how you can
Yeah.
detect drift and all these things. Yeah.
Are we not going to talk about any endpoints or inferencing scripts and everything?
Endpoints, yeah, we have mentioned about pipelines and endpoints. We will
Okay.
see if the time permits. Yeah, we will into this.